Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk Stories. Today, we have a special guest. Before we introduce him, we will introduce the regulars of myself. I'm Jared, and my co-host,
I'm Kaylon.
Charles, hello.
And our special guest, Daniel, who is a filmmaker, a writing-led filmmaking individual who is a director and who loves stories as much as we do. So we were so glad to have him on the show to talk about the movie we were talking about today, which is A Few Good Men. But before we jump into all of that, we do the usual, which is just do a vibe check. How is everybody doing? What's everybody done this last week? What's been fun? What's been crap? Whatever going around. So, Charles, you had a story to tell, so we'll start with you.
No, not me. It's kind of cringy.
Perfect.
We like cringe here.
So there was the Revenge of the Sith re-release. I had to see it, right? So I went and I saw it. I'm like, this is amazing, right? And I'm thinking about all the days. And Tuesday comes around, and I finish up all my work. I finish everything, and I'm relaxing. And I go, it's Discount Tuesday. I could see it again. And my brain's like, no, you just did. You've seen this movie a million times. You're not going to be that fanboy. You don't do that. That's not you. You're going to stay home and you're going to do more work, right? Or like the not necessary work. So then me and my brother went in the car and I was like, I can't believe this, but I saw Revenge of the Sith twice, even though I've seen this movie a million times, and saw the initial release back in 2005. Good Lord. Anyway, and I was like, what have I done? But it was kind of humorous. It was a blast, though. I could go on and on and on and on about it. It's fascinating to revisit, but that is my humorous story that I did. I saw it twice within like 3-4 days, and I was like, what am I doing?
Good way to spend.
As you should.
Apparently, I am that kind of fan. Everyone else is like, yeah, we know. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't.
Well, we're glad that you were.
Say one thing. I love the argument you had in your head, which is like, should I see it? Is it wrong if I see it again? Like, do I just watch it? Like, you know, I think we can all relate to that. I always feel like there's something I should be doing more important than watching the thing I want to watch, and I don't know why my brain does that. You know.
Mm-hmm.
We are men. We
Understand.
are people of multi minds. I think ultimately.
This is why we can't dialogue well.
True.
Because we have arguments in our heads already.
True. This is true. I mean, it's
You're not
also. I mean, that might be why your dialogue can be really great, though, too, if you really think about it. Because if you have these multiple conversations in your head, it's like you're able to give different people different voices. My secret weapon is mental illness, so it's totally helpful for me. So yeah, but Daniel, how was your week this past week? What did you get into?
Cool. What have I been doing this week? I have a 6-month-old baby at home, so my brain is fried. And any question you ask, it's going to take me about 7 minutes of silence to think of an answer. What have I been doing? Relating to TV and film, I've been probably not watching that much. The one thing I have been watching is The Studio on Apple TV. Have you guys seen any of that?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it yet.
It's like my favorite show in a while, maybe because I'm not getting to watch much at the moment with the baby I mentioned, but it's hilarious. It's Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, and they've always done good comedy. They've always been great, but this show has really made me appreciate them and kind of go back to all their other films that we've known over the years with a new appreciation. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like this is I was going to use the word masterpiece. That's too much. It's a very good show, and it's grabbing my interest. And the episodes are like 26 minutes. So I can fit that in when the baby naps for exactly 26 minutes. You know?
Makes a lot of sense.
Can I add to that for a minor rant?
Yeah.
I can't stand that shows are 45-hour-long things now. I'm like, I am 20 minutes. You have 22 minutes.
I just say you started that by saying, I can't stand that show. And I thought, oh, he hates the show. Then you carried it on to something else.
Oh, no. First of all, I would not do that to you after you just said you're fat.
You do that to us.
What a great podcast episode if you do that. The first thing I mentioned, you're like, I hate that.
That would just like forget quality of show. That would just be. Can I use a minor curse, Jared?
Of course you can.
That would just be a dick move.
That is the first of many curse words that will be heard on this podcast, as usual, because I am the resident potty mouth of this podcast.
But yeah, I just want to say I think that's fantastic though that they can do that much in what used to be the standard time.
100%. And they literally like what you're saying about shows that are longer now. Like I like so many Netflix shows and whatever else, Prime, and they like 10 episodes, an hour long each. And there have been some shows that I've watched the first episode and then just watched the last episode because you just know they're setting up, who killed this guy? And then 8 episodes of nonsense, and then who killed the guy? So for me, like, not every show, but if something's dragging, I'll just skip right ahead. Life's short.
Agreed.
I totally get it, man.
What about you, Jaylon?
I actually had a rare moment of time this weekend to watch The Music Man with my husband, and that was super fun. I think I messaged you, Jared, and I was like, there was a certain song, and I was like, I am both cracking up because this is so funny. I understand like the marketing gimmicks of the traveling salesman. I was like, I understand why psychologically this works because I've been, studying marketing in order to fill this role for One Brilliant Arc. And I'm like, I hate that I know that this works. And it's also more funny because I know that this works. But I also hate that I know this.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you did say that to me. It's true. It's weird. I mean, marketing in general is icky, but it's also. I said that to you months ago about how annoyed I get by like when marketing works on you, and that it's like I know you're marketing to me, I know you're selling me something, and I hate that you tricked me. But like I'm kind of for this. I hate that. I can't stand it. I don't know what it is. I was like, I wish I can go back to just a complete consumer who just had no knowledge of anything, but it's like now I know what you're doing, and I'm letting you do it to me. So it is what it is. My weekend was cool. No, it wasn't. That's not true. It was horrible, but it was only horrible because one, a TV show saved my life, and two, another TV show entertained me after the fact. So I watched the show 4 seasons. It just came out on Netflix, and it's about like a group of friends who spend 1 year. The show goes over the course of 1 year, and it's like these different seasons, and there are different relationships or whatever. One of the characters was having chest pains and dizziness, and then they were like, he needs a stent in his heart, he's gonna die. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I've been lightheaded and I've been having chest pains, so I think I need to get a stent in my heart, and I'm gonna die. So I went on this like 2-day like spiral of paranoia and WebMD and ChatGPT to try to figure out if I was dying. Finally, ChatGPT was like, go to the hospital. In other words, I'm a robot, don't talk to me. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go. So I went. Turns out I was okay. All the life-threatening things were ruled out. They still don't know what's wrong with me, so I'm still lightheaded, but it's fine. I'm here. But then I got home and I decided to watch a comfort show. So I ended up watching Law and Order, which is such a weird comfort show, I admit.
Just Law and Order?
It was the newest one, Law and Order, Organized Crime. And I really like it, this version, compared to all the other ones, because it's not episodic, it's all serialized. And I love Elliot Stabler, so watching him and his adventures has been a blast. And it's the perfect show to fall asleep on. So that's not a critique on its quality. It's just a critique on my ability to fall asleep on good things. But yeah, that was my weekend, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys today. So now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's jump straight into the actual thing that we're here to talk about. As I said, A Few Good Men. The reason why we are talking about it is because it's proof that tension, character, and dialogue alone can carry a whole damn movie, honestly. It's also proof that the idea of having philosophical statements as the core to a story is fucking god to storytelling, because the idea that everybody in that story had different philosophies, different beliefs, different stances, and they all were just clashing that entire time, and that's entertaining. Yeah, I love that movie. And I forgot how much I loved that movie until about 5 o'clock this morning. But I did, in fact, love that movie. But before we jump right into that, I have a question that may or may not be in relation to this particular film, but it's a question to ask. What is the film that made you rethink authority? Period.
Oh, I know this answer. And I hate myself
Daniel,
for that.
Daniel, just so you know, I don't know how familiar you are with the Avengers or whatever, or Captain America, but Jaylon is almost like Captain America in the sense of like when she knows something, it's that whole I know that reference thing. That's Jaylon. So her having the answer to this question is one of those moments.
That's all good.
All right, Jaylon, since you were so excited about this experience, I want you to go first.
I just always have a hard time remembering like what movies I've actually watched in my life.
Fair.
But no, it would have to be Ice Princess, the movie that came out in the early 2000s.
What
I've
is
seen
that?
this movie. I want her.
Mine too.
I'm sorry. Carry on. We need to get past this answer.
I'm gonna have to Google that now, but yeah, because I've never heard of that. The fact that it's called the Ice Princess makes me wonder why that makes you challenge authority.
It's about a girl.
It was,
And she has skills.
it was a movie about figure skating, and
Okay.
Michelle Trachtenberg played the lead character, and she played the role of a high school student who was graduating, and her mother just expected her to go into a physics scholarship, but she discovered a love for figure skating. And so the whole point of the movie, the whole theme was that you have to grow up and make your own decisions in life, and you can't let someone's idea of what your life should be dictate those decisions. So
That's fair.
I watched it when I was pretty young, and that like twisted my brain of like I'm gonna have to grow up at some point and make my own decisions.
Context matters. Context matters. The only figure skating movie I've ever seen was the Nancy Kerrigan story, and I was like 8, and I feel horrible because I've said this a million times, I was a horrible child, but when Nancy Kerrigan got hit with the pipe thing by I forget her name, the one that hit her, and Nancy Kerrigan screaming "Why me?" and that was the most wooden performance I had ever seen. But it was also I wasn't old enough to know what wooden performances was yet, so to me it was just hilarious. So that is my only connection to figure skating whatsoever. Okay, Daniel, what about you?
I'm going to just give you the answer that flashed into my head, and I don't know if this is a relevant answer, but I was thinking of Goodfellas and how, like, come the end of the film, Henry Hill, Ray Liotta's character, he kind of has this moment, if I remember correctly, when he's in witness protection, he's remembering this glorious life he had as a gangster, and you're left with this feeling, which is like, maybe it's better being a gangster. Maybe it's better not living by the law, not living by the authorities, and going that way. And it was such a powerful. I still have yet to break a law myself, but I'm ready for it. After watching that, I'm like, maybe this is something. I need to rethink my values, you know? That sprung to mind. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's what came to my mind.
If it's your answer, it's the right answer. Goodfellas, though, is a fantastic movie. I love that movie so much. My goal in life, one of them, is to make Jaylon watch it. I don't know if I'll ever get it to happen, but I hope that I will. I know Charles watched The Godfather recently and had a wonderful experience with that. Now I just need to get him and Jaylon to watch Scarface and Goodfellas, and then my criminal trilogies of my criminal goal will be complete. I love gangster movies, so I think that's perfect. You, Charles, what about you?
So, in terms of film, so I have an answer, but it's really, I bring this up because I think it's an interesting connection. I was going to say, this is not really challenging authority per se, but A Few Good Men reminded me, I've talked about this movie before, I think, of Thank You for Smoking. Because I saw that movie in 10th grade. This is one of those movies where my stupid ghetto high school is like, everyone, have a laptop, they'll do work. Yeah, we're going to do work. And so I learned all this other stuff, watched this stuff I wasn't allowed to watch and learn all this stuff. And that movie's about rhetoric. And that's pretty much what it is. It's about like, smoking's bad. Well, why is smoking bad? And breaking down the argument. So it's a lot about marketing in that sense. But the thing that always stuck with me was the character says, I don't have to prove I'm right. I just have to prove you're wrong. And that kind of started to roll in my head. I'm like, if I did this to my teachers, could they argue their point? Could they really stand on something? So that's what clicked in my head with this movie about challenging authority in terms of a film. But I think the first time I genuinely was like, authority might not really be all that great, was the Justice League cartoon. Because for those who don't know, to make a very long story short, there's a whole arc in that show where a bunch of human characters get together to try to bring down the Justice League. And you're like, oh no, it's terrible. But as the story goes on, the people are like, you are superpower people who live in a satellite in space with a freaking laser. You could kill us all. Just like that. And then, of course, it's Lex Luthor plotting and yada, yada, yada. But a lot of the fears that the humans, the normal people, like, fears can happen. And, of course, there's the whole Justice Lords episode where because of the Flash dying, the Justice League just takes over the Earth. And I was just literally talking about this to my brother last night, that it's a cartoon, so you have to kind of tone it down for children. But the cops come and arrest this guy for arguing a check at a restaurant. Just a check, And that was the first time where it's like, not just like superheroes could maybe not be perfect, but it was like, well, they're the Justice League. Well, maybe they can be wrong. Who else can be wrong? Well, I'm wearing the S on my chest. Well, what is it from Monty Python? Just because you wear an S on your chest does not mean make you king or whatever. Not the foundation for a government. I can't remember the quote. That was the first time I think I ever started going,
I'm torn between two, because I feel like there's a movie that helped me question authority, but then there's also the movie that helped me realize that I didn't have to go with the crowd. So V for Vendetta was the movie that helped me realize that I didn't need to listen. I always had problems with authority, but the movie that made it okay that I wasn't abnormal because I felt like following what people told me to do wasn't always the smartest thing to do. So I would say that would be the one that helped me do that. But the movie that ultimately taught me, I guess, challenging the status quo and choosing to kind of be your own person was 12 Angry Men. That movie that's my all-time favorite movie, but it did ultimately make me realize that it's important to stand up for what you believe in no matter what. And yeah, so that's the movie that I would definitely say hands down was it for me. So diving into the actual movie now. When was the first time that you saw A Few Good Men, and did it hit the same way on the rewatch?
I'm not sure when I first saw it. I'm a big Aaron Sorkin fan, so I feel like I watch most of his stuff on a loop. I feel like there's always something of his in rotation. Love The West Wing, even The Newsroom that a lot of people hated, and then all of his movies. And I do love, in particular, A Few Good Men and The American President, because I feel like they're early enough in his career where the writing's just got a purity to it. It's pure storytelling. It's just like A Few Good Men. It doesn't even feel like, even though it's perfectly plotted and the dialogue is beautiful, it feels like they just made it up as they went along and said everything perfectly, because it just flows. It's just like magic. So I've lost my train of thought. What am I saying? Don't remember when I first saw it, but I've seen it many times, and it still lives up to it for sure.
Fun fact about Aaron Sorkin: I actually did a class that was taught by Aaron Sorkin and
Hello?
learned. Yeah, I did, and and I learned not everything that I learned from screenwriting from that class, but I learned a big chunk of a lot of stuff that I learned from screenwriting. So I've always been a big fan of Aaron Sorkin, West Wing, Social Network, whatever the hell that movie's called.
What was the class? What was the thing that you did?
It was a webinar class that I had to do, and signed up for that. It was with through a college thing. I wasn't in college, but it was one of those things where like the college put it on, and so you can go. And so it was like a 3-class thing. I did that a few years ago, but it was really fun, really cool. I learned a lot. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the time. I was also working, so I wasn't able to do the live class with everybody else, so I wasn't able to do the like Q&A part, so I had to watch the replays. But even still, it was still a cool experience. And so ever since then, I've kind of just always kind of been gravitating towards Aaron Sorkin's stuff, just because I like his style of writing.
You're a teacher's pet then.
No, I don't think so. No, he didn't even talk to me, so no. But I'm a single white female version of who admired him. That's weird. But anyway, Charles, what about you?
So I had never seen this movie before. I knew, the famous lines and stuff. The closest I knew about this movie before was the Simpsons episode where Sideshow Bob becomes the mayor, and they do this whole ending bit which is hilarious because they go, I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. What Bob does, he goes, you can't handle the truth. No, truth handler, you. I sincerely doubt your truth handling capabilities, which is a thing me and my brothers say to each other all the time. So I was coming at this completely fresh, and it was starting, and I was like, they're doing the opening credits, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how long? 2 hours until. Oh my gosh, like, oh, am I going to be able to get through this? Is it just going to be this military propaganda thing? I don't know. Early 90s. I'm not. And I'm watching and I'm like, okay. And then I'm watching more going. I started getting more and more into it. And I was like, damn, that's really good. Like, apparently, I'm learning this about myself. So this weekend, I hung out at my buddy's place and his wife's for the weekend, and he got me to play Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the remake that just came out. And I was playing it, and I was like, I really don't like this kind of D&D sort of fantasy. Like, I love the Witcher game, but like, I don't know. I don't like having to do this. And I played it for like 3 hours. And I'm like, shoot, apparently I've always liked this. I just never realized it. And it was the same experience with this movie as I was watching going, I don't care about lawyers. I don't care about courtroom drama. Yeah, there's a few I like, but I don't really care. Now, apparently I do. Apparently I find this stuff fascinating and just amazing. But yeah, this is the first time I ever came across it. And I'm like, this is really good.
That's surprising. I didn't know that about you. But I like that I know that now, and I like that this was your first time, and that you enjoyed it. I like that. Shaylon, what about you? I mean, I know this was your first time, but what'd you think?
So I actually have a very early memory of this movie, but it was because I grew up being like very scared of Disney villains. And my mom was like, I'm not going to be awake all night with you while you have nightmares after watching a Disney movie. So she was very careful about like knowing what I could handle watching. And she had a bunch of her favorite movies, like A Few Good Men and The Color Purple and Shawshank Redemption, in like a special case, all the VHS tapes. And I just always like saw them as the adult movies that I would enjoy watching someday. And I know she was like really waiting for that day to be able to watch it with me. I ended up, just the way life worked out, I ended up watching A Few Good Men for the first time with my husband, who is actually in the military right now. Maybe like 3-4 months ago. I will admit I did not rewatch it because it was not for free anymore on Amazon Prime, and I didn't feel like renting it for $15. So, I haven't watched enough gangster movies to be ready to break laws yet. I just reread the synopsis, but it was such a good movie. I remember most of it. It's stuck with me, which I can tell that's how I know it's a really good movie, because I remember so much of it, and it's stuck with me as if I just watched it yesterday.
I will answer this question, but instead, before I answer this question, I'm going to ask you guys a question that you can answer and talk about amongst yourselves. But I do smell something burning, and we know my history with that, so I will be back. But the question that I do have is, what was your standout moment? What is the standout moment? And you can't say that you can't handle the truth part, because everybody says that. So what is your standout moment in this movie for you besides that point? And I will leave it to you guys to discuss. I'll be right back.
Hopefully his house is not burning.
For those of you who missed the
I'd rather talk about that. No.
Jared's house caught on fire in the middle of one of these episodes, and we had to stop in the middle.
That's some drama right there. Well, as you've only seen the film once a few months back, what sticks with you?
I think the standout moment for me, like the moment where I was really into the story, like Charles was saying, that was when Kathy starts asking follow-up questions when they go to visit, was it Lieutenant Colonel? No, not Lieutenant Colonel. The base commander, Markinson.
Yeah, Markinson. Yeah.
Yeah. When he starts asking those follow-up questions, and you kind of like get the idea that he's digging to see, and you're like, oh, I thought you weren't you weren't actually caring about seeing if there was a case here or not. But that was where you saw that little crack in his character's persona, and you start seeing, oh, there's something deeper here. And immediately then I was hooked, because I wanted to see what was deeper there, both about his character and about the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm terrible with names, so I would just say Tom Cruise, forgive me.
That works for me.
But something that I really just liked was it's not. It was interesting because it's the moment where he goes to the arraignment and he's like, "We're going to bring this to trial." That whole where he's walking through DC and he's alone, he's thinking, and it wasn't because it's like he's an asshole with a heart of gold. It wasn't that, even though structurally it's the thing we've seen a million times. But there was just something about it with the way it was framed here that was so much more interesting, so much more honest. And I could just really relate to that, where it's like how much he has to lose and how much it rides on with him and his father and these Marines and the whole context of it. And it was really fascinating. However, there's a couple moments I laughed in this movie, less that it was humorous per se, just of like, oh man, that's really great. That's really cool. But the thing I loved is when Kevin Bacon gives the one Marine who's on the stand, where's the code red in the book, the Marine book? And the camera pans over following Kevin Bacon, and Tom Cruise comes up and he takes the book with him and goes, where's the mess hall of where to eat, all that stuff. And I was like, that's so cool. Yeah. And it's not just a funny gag, though. Again, this is something really, really neat. It's a funny gag, but jumping for what you were saying, John, what's really cool about it is it's showing that he cares more because he's going faster. He's getting more energetic, doing these little bit more crazier stunts, not for himself, but for something bigger. So it's a wonderful example of a gag that's both visually interesting, but if you think about it, has a little bit more going on in the character. So yeah, it was really interesting because they're talking all this stuff about his dad. I'm like, oh, he's got daddy issues, but I don't know, the way Sorkin filtered it through, it felt much more honest than I expected, especially for this era.
One thing that surprised me that you've kind of brought up about that moment when he was thinking whether he's going to take the case and stuff is that he tries to quit about 7 times in this film. Like really, really is like, I cannot do it anymore. I give up. And I didn't remember that. You know what I mean? But even right near the end, before he's going to question Nicholson, it's just like, he's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm out of here. I can't do it. And it just reminds you, I think, when you're, for the screenwriters out there, like when you're writing a script and you want a character with forward motion, someone going after a goal, they can also reach those breaking points when they're like, no, I'm absolutely done. And there's different characters at different times sort of drag him back to be like, no, we've got this, you've got this, which was just, interesting and a good sort of quirk of the writing as well.
Are we fine, Jared?
Yes. No fires to put out this week.
Good.
I'm good.
Papers.
It turns out that it is the contractors across the street of the house, and apparently it wasn't fire, it was marijuana. So, but it freaked me out. So sorry. But yeah, so I'll answer both questions. First, the first time that I saw this movie, I think I was maybe 11, somewhere around there. I watched it with my brother. This was a little bit around the time my brother was getting ready to go to the military. So he was like obsessed with all military movies and anything related to military, which, I have a beef with the military, but it's specifically because of my own issues. But nonetheless, this movie, when I saw it when I was a kid, I did not fully appreciate what this movie was. To me, it was extremely boring. I also had a really big beef with Tom Cruise. I don't know why. I just didn't like him. So I didn't like his face. That's what it was. I did not like his face,
He has both a hot and punchable face. So
maybe that I was just like, I don't like that face, and I don't want to see it. So that was how it was. As I got older and I saw it again and again, I began to gain a better appreciation for the film. And then when I started to really fall in love with filmmaking and screenwriting and that kind of stuff, then I began to understand it as the art that it was. So I loved it. This morning when I watched it, it was 5 a.m. So I have mixed feelings about it. I've been trying to sort it out as to whether or not it's like, oh, this is, as we call it around here, 7 a.m. Jared, who hates everything and all things, or if this was like, is this like me genuinely critiquing? I couldn't say that I found anything particularly wrong with this movie, per se, except for Tom Cruise, who I apparently still don't like. But I did like his performance in this movie. I also have issues with Demi Moore. Generally speaking, I have issues with her because I feel like she's kind of problematic as a human, but that's okay. All that said, the story itself it still hit for me in the sense of like, oh, this is really good. This is good writing. The performances are really, really great. The direction is really, really good. And I see why it's a classic amongst like people who love, film buffs who are just like, oh, this is such a good movie. I see why. And then I also went down this rabbit hole about, Jack Nicholson and why, like, if I was worth $400 million, I also would not work anymore either. But Jack Nicholson has earned that right, and he is fantastic in this movie as he is in mostly every other movie, though my favorite role for him, besides One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is the Joker, and I don't care what anybody has to say about it. I just love it so freaking much.
I'm not arguing.
We're getting along, yay! No, the scene I think that really, really like stood out to me. I don't know if it stood out to me. It just made my heart happy at 5:00 in the morning. Was the song Hound Dog being in it. By Big Mama, whatever, I forget her last name, but the original, not the Elvis Presley co-opted version. And as much as I love Elvis Presley, that to see African Americans being able to get their due and put out into a mainstream movie was kind of a really cool moment, regardless if Tom Cruise was in the scene. It was still pretty cool, and I enjoyed that. That was a pretty kick-ass moment for me. Do you guys consider this movie a dad movie? I know that was a random segue, but like,
Well,
definition of a dad movie, so we're on the same wavelength.
it's like it's a movie that like your dad would have made you watch, or your grandfather, or somebody who's older than you would make you sit down and watch this movie with them type of film. Or was it something that you were just like, no, I have to see this for me?
I actually feel like it's one of those kind of films that slips through the net a little bit and does like it's a classic, but no, I mean, you guys, two of us in here hadn't watched it or watched, like, so for example, like my dad made me watch 12 Angry Men. He made me watch lots of films, but A Few Good Men was just kind of like something that I was like, I like Aaron Sorkin, I like Tom Cruise sometimes. So I need to go back and watch this, So yeah, I'd say maybe not a dad film. However, I'm now a dad when he's old enough, maybe.
So it may become a dad.
Yeah, in this generation's, he's probably the same age comparatively to what 12 Angry Men was for my dad. This is like my black and white movie, maybe.
Again, I didn't have the experience where my parents like made me sit down and watch it. It was a movie that I knew I always wanted to watch once I was old enough to appreciate it and in the headspace to appreciate it in life, because I knew I wanted to watch it for myself, and it exceeded my expectations when I did finally watch it. And also, there is a joke in our household that both my husband and I are old geezers already. So we are the grandparents that are sitting down and watching old movies and then falling asleep by 9 p.m.
Fair.
Sleep at 9 p.m. Oh my gosh.
Well, the flip side to that is getting out of bed at 4:30 a.m.
So you're not real. I mean, then you're really old, actually.
See, this is my beef with the military. They make me get out of bed at 4:30 a.m. because my husband has to go to work at that time.
Fair. But you're also old, so I mean, you're not old, but I mean, like,
8-year-old woman.
It's also old person schedule, because like old people get up early too, so that makes complete sense to me. Yeah, I think I had a thought, but it left me. Charles, you answer the question.
So this is an interesting detail, because I would say for me, all the dad movies I had were science fiction fantasy pieces. So he showed me the 2000 Dune miniseries when I was a preteen. That's how I learned about Dune and became a Dune fan. I watched Battlestar Galactica with him when it was on air. This is the 2000s version that I have still not made Jared and Jaylon watch for some reason.
My list for stuff I need to watch to make you two happy is so long.
Okay, but Battlestar Galactica is like one of the few like actual ones. Anyway, moving on.
Everything
but
else
a lot
is
of,
trash, he says.
Raiders of the Lost Ark and a lot of the science fiction fantasy kinds of pieces. Not a lot of militaristic talking movies, a lot in an interesting way. However, this is a really interesting detail I hadn't thought of. The dad kind of movies, those kinds of dude bro machismo movies, if they were anything like that, they were military movies. So our military material talking like Band of Brothers every Memorial Day kind of a detail. And the reason I find that really interesting now that I think about it is this is a movie about consequences of violence, consequences of violent mental scapes, no matter the context. And I think it's kind of an interesting idea that this would, in my brain, my experience, the way I grew up, wouldn't have been one of those kinds of movies. And I wonder if that kind of has something to do with portrayal of violence. Which is funny because even in this movie, I didn't know what it was going in. So frankly, movie starts, I was like, are they gonna rape this guy? Like, it's a very dark, very brutal kind of opening in general. So I think that's an interesting connection there on what exactly would be a dad film, and so it's an interesting conversation there. I hadn't thought of it before until just now.
My dad, when I was around him on the occasions where I was, he was more of a Western guy. So for him, it was like, the good, the bad, the ugly. Was it the Magnificent Seven?
Mhm.
Like those kinds of things were the kinds of stuff that he would make us watch, or like Gunsmoke, or that kind of stuff. So this kind of movie wasn't really on his radar. Like I said, I did see it when I was a kid, but it was with my older brothers. And there was like I said again, there was a very specific reason. My brother, I don't know what was wrong with him. He was a problem, but he made me watch military movies to make me less scared about his experience in the military, so that when he goes, I wouldn't be as afraid. However, he had me watching movies like Full Metal Jacket and Platoon and all of his other movies, which are terrible ideas to show a child of what the military is like and what it's going to be like. So in my mind, he was going to get blown up in Vietnam, even though it was the late 90s 2000s. So it was a little bit different, but it was this movie wasn't really that. However, I do agree with Daniel in the sense that I think for this generation, this may be definitely a dad movie, or I think it may be a film buff's required watching list film. It's one of those things where you just kind of gotta, if you're gonna love movies or you're gonna be a filmmaker or a screenwriter, it's one of those movies that you kind of just have to kind of see.
Well, going off of your point, Jared, that it's a film that shows the psychological drama. I think that it's a movie that an older generation is going to want to show a younger generation, because it's a story that so perfectly encapsulates what it means to stand up for what's right, even against entire systems that are put in place to silence you, and even against everything being against you. So I think that in that sense, it requires a mature mindset to understand the depths of those themes. So I think that it's always going to be an older generation that is wanting to share it with a younger generation once they've reached that maturity.
I think there's another moment, and I think actually this is tied to the moment I did mention of him thinking about, I need to do this, is I thought it was fascinating that he goes to the lawyer bar, something to that end, and he hears another guy say the exact same thing he told Demi Moore earlier in the movie, like way earlier in the movie. And he thought it was a really cool thing, or at least we thought it was a cool thing. And then we hear it from this guy, and it's like, it's just garbage. It's just lip service. The reason I bring that up is, from what you said, Jaylon, it's funny that also, I think it's also an element of self-honor, that it's not just you have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, but also for you, be a human being rather than just some talking robot, just a no one. Because I think that's one of the reasons he decides to do this, is because he hears this guy and it's like, I don't want to be that kind of faceless guy and be a human being. So that's an interesting element of bravery that you say. I think there's facets to it in this film, which is fascinating.
Fun fact, the scene that you're talking about, the one where the other lawyer's talking to the woman at the bar, the lawyer that's talking at the bar is Aaron Sorkin, actually.
Oh, interesting.
So, which I didn't remember until I saw it this morning, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Aaron Sorkin. That's kind of cool. He seems to be in like all of his movies, but you just have to kind of, he's very well, Where's Waldo in the whole thing. What do you guys think makes a good legal drama? How do you make a good legal drama and so that it's not boring? Because I feel like the idea of a legal drama is kind of specifically one involving lawyers and like trials. Because I feel like that it's not the most exciting thing in the world, going to court. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to experience that kind of thing. So when you think about how do I make 2 hours about this, let alone like the show Jag, which made like multiple seasons about being a lawyer, or Matlock, for instance. But all that aside, what do you think makes a successful legal drama, and how would you, as storytellers yourselves, how would you go about doing that?
I'll dive in. First of all, I think actually you said something there along the lines of it's not the most exciting thing, or not the most, I can't remember what you said, but actually, when you think about it, if you're in a courtroom, it's probably the most important day of your life. Do you know what I mean? It's something huge has happened. Your life, you're going to be free or you're going to be in prison, or somebody's died, someone, like so many, there's so much that can happen. And even like the dynamics of, is the judge truthful? Is the jury legit? What does this lawyer think of this lawyer? Like, it's all of human drama in one room. In many ways, I would argue it makes the job of a writer easier because there's so much you can do. So like you mentioned, Law and Order. For me, I always love shows like David E. Kelly shows, like Ally McBeal, Boston Legal, whatever he's done since. I just love those kind of shows. For me, if I see a good trailer, lawsuits, lawyers, like, it grabs me because you don't have to make that stuff up. It's we all relate to it. We all understand the premise. We all understand, this guy is going to go to prison. I watched not too long ago the film The Judge with Robert Duvall and Robert Downey Jr. I actually don't remember it completely, but it probably has some similar themes to this film, fatherhood and like impressing it, all this stuff. And it's for me, there's so much you can do with a courtroom that if someone hired me to write a courtroom drama, I'd be like, awesome, because it's so much of it. It does it for you, It's
That's fair. That is a fair argument.
To Daniel's point, a lot of my favorite films, even though I'm not a very technically minded person, so keeping all of the roles straight, all of the politics straight, overwhelms my brain. However, even from when I was very young, I can remember movies like Miracle on 34th Street, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and 12 Angry Men. Those have all been movies that have grabbed my attention and have meant something to me over the years. Movies that I went back to rewatch and study more. So I would say the answer to your question, Jared, is the same answer to any other story. How do you make it interesting? It would be give the theme something deeper. So you're not just finding out who's right, who's wrong. You're finding out what the consequences of that are to someone very personally. Like you were saying, Daniel, like you need to understand the impact that these decisions have on the emotions in people that we can all relate to because we've felt them too. So once you start diving into that and start needling at that, which this movie does so well, then you've got a good story on your hands, regardless of where the setting or the premise is.
So strap yourself in here because I may make some different references to this point because this is what I do. But so first off, personally, I think the courtroom is inherently amazing of a setting because it's theater. It is literally there's an audience, so it is literally theater. It's interestingly structured the same way that a baseball diamond is a duel, is a theater. It's just inherently fitting of that style. Also, lawyer stories are inherently mysteries, even if you don't have to go through like the kind of trench coat fedora sense of investigation. It's still a mystery. You're still trying to unravel everything. But I think what makes it really, really great, and what separates it, I think a good one will separate from the lesser ones, is at the end of the day, and this film's a great example of this, it's not about who's going to prison. It's not about who did wrong. It's about putting cultural philosophy right on the line. It's about human people and trying what they believe in. And it's a fascinating detail because there's a famous, maybe you've all seen it because it's famous, Star Trek TNG episode. It's called, I think it's Measure of a Man, where basically Data's the android, right, in that show. And there's this guy who wants to take Data and dismantle him, right, because he's just a puppet, more or less. And Data goes, yeah, screw that. And he goes to trial where he's like, I'm a person, right? And so the guy hires Riker, the second command, to be the prosecutor, and Picard, the captain, is the lawyer, and there's a judge. And there's all these debates and questions of, is Data a real person? How do we know this, etc.? But the judge at the end, she says basically what we've been talking about are questions that are millennia old that philosophers still can't figure out. And that's what it is. It's not about, will this guy get Data? It's, what do we define as humanity, right? So it's the same thing with this one, too. It's the same thing. It's not really about, are they going to go to prison? Are they not? It's, what do we decide is unjust? In a sense, what defines a Marine? What is that code of honor and conduct in the real world, in the personal core. And it's also interesting too, because I think all the fantastic lawyer stories, even down to history, are like this. There is a sort of a comic book. It's not quite a comic book. It's not quite not. That I found at a bookstore called Abina and the Important Men. And it is an adaptation of a transcript from a northwestern African nation during English imperialism. I cannot remember the specific details, but it was about this woman who was named Abina, a real woman, who argued for herself basically that she was free and not a slave of a local area's leader. It gets really complicated, but it's based on this transcript of this lady defending herself. And again, it's not about where does she belong in property. It's about she, a woman, deciding I'm not going to be a slave. And she has her day in court. And this transcript was found in some weird basement in the area, and now we know as a part of real history. So between history and fiction, these are the foundations of the lawyer drama. And that's really, really fascinating, that it's not about a park. Well, maybe sometimes a parking ticket is just about a parking ticket.
Yeah.
But even then, a parking ticket can either humorously or even dramatically become something else in the essence of the courtroom, because you're finally putting to the test what the culture has decided is the law, is the right thing. And trust me, if you want to go through the history of what has been defined by the government, by the authority as what is right and what is wrong per decade, per century, it gets crazy. So I think that's why they're inherently fascinating. And that's my TED Talk. Goodbye, everyone.
I agree. I agree with you guys. In listening to each of you talk about it, it's made me think about my own fandom of legal dramas, courtroom drama specifically, from like A Time to Kill to my all the way to My Cousin Vinny. I have been a fan of courtroom dramas, and I think that the thing that stuck out to me goes back to I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, but it goes back to my belief in when it comes to writing screenplays as well as writing prose, of the belief of starting your story with a thematic statement, a thematic belief, a philosophical belief, whatever you want to call it, and then putting each character, creating different characters that all hold different stances on that scale. And I feel that courtroom dramas do that exceptionally well, where you kind of do create these different people. You have this whatever the case is the philosophical argument. The case is the thing that we're trying to figure out, where you, the viewer, stand on all of that. And then you have all of these other people that are coming in to sort of state their case, literally and figuratively, for this thing. I've always seen court as more, I never thought of it as theater, but it makes sense. I've always looked at it from the perspective of it's a game, because lawyers are always, from the prosecutor to the defense, they're always trying to beat the other. And the judges, although there is a judge, but the real judge is the jury. They're the ones who ultimately decides who wins and who loses. And so I've always it's one of the reasons why I really liked Suits when I watched it, because I always felt like Suits really got that feel of like, oh, this is a game, and we come here to be the best of the best at what we're doing. And when we step in a courtroom, if we even get to a courtroom, it's going to be to win. And which is a weird thing to think about when you're thinking about things like justice, and when you're thinking about justice for a person. And usually, like you were saying, Daniel, generally speaking, the most important day of a person's life, whether you're, I think for everyone involved, really, it's an important day for them. But for the person who's on the defendant side, usually your life is being decided in one way or another. And so to think that there are people who see this whole thing as kind of a game seems almost disrespectful a little bit, but also, I don't know, it speaks volumes to the system. And I don't know how it is in London as far as the court systems there, but I know in the United States, it's a very weird thing that they do here, the way that they do it. So I think that you're right. I think you guys are right. There's a lot there to bite into as far as like what makes a good story and how to tell a good story in that space. Question I'll say now is, who do you feel like is the real main character in this story? Do you feel like it's Kaffee, or do you feel like it's Jessup? Better question. Not main character. Who's the hero in the story? Kaffee or Jessup? I'll tell you right now, it's the correct answer. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I feel like personally, you guys can think on it, but I think Jessup is in fact the hero of the story. He's a horrible person because sometimes heroes do horrible things, but he's the hero.
It sounds like you buy into his speech at the end when he's like, "You want me on the wall, you need me on the wall."
I do.
And you're like, you know what? I do need that guy on the wall. Yeah.
I do. It was the line where he says, where he basically talks about how dare you criticize me for the protection that I give you. How, like, you love to lay under the blanket of the protection that I give you, but you criticize me on the way that I give it. And for some reason that resonated with me, not so much because I am out here, you know, being a hero to the world or anything, but there are people that I've interacted with in life who have criticized so much about the way that I go about doing the things that I do, but then want the benefits of the things that I do. And it's like, well, you can't, it doesn't really work like that. And I also have always been a firm believer that there is a necessity for good men who do bad things, or sometimes bad men who have to do good things for the sake of larger groups of people. I've always believed that that's a necessity from time to time. I don't know if it's like, it's a slippery slope, I think, if we just let them, you know, run wild. But I do think it's a necessity from time to time.
I think it goes back to, like, we're all human, and that sometimes doesn't come across as black and white. What the culture or government has decided is law written on paper, which is two-dimensional. But as humans, we are more than two-dimensional. So how do you make something that's two-dimensional fit onto lives that are four-dimensional?
And so the question was, who's the real hero again? Because I can't remember the name.
Jack Nicholson or Tom Cruise?
Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise. It's wrong. It's Demi Moore.
That's what I was going to say.
Because
Thank
she's the only one who's pushing for everything. First of all, we don't have time to get into the philosophical treatise of Jack Nicholson's argument. But my point stands is, are those points fair? Absolutely. One, he strikes me as a bit of a dick.
For
Maybe I can fit that word in for one more time. Here, when it's on, and go 3 for 3. But one, so everything he says is suspect. Two, fantastic. There's still a soldier who is dead because of an order of viciousness. And in the court transcript, they do say this is not wartime. So jot that out the window there. But specifically, forget that argument. Tom Cruise's character this is a very interesting throwback to culture of 30 years ago. Oh Lord, 30 years, never mind. What is happening? Why make the world? Anyway, but he, of course, he's the guy on the poster because he's Tom Cruise. He's hot, he's rich, he's successful, and he talks super fast, and he does Jerry Maguire before he does Jerry Maguire.
I thought that, yeah.
Yeah. So he's the one that gets to be the hero with all the big speeches and all the cool stuff, and he's the lead, yada, yada, yada. But my theater teacher, I think my first or both, I can't remember if it was both, but at least one of my theater teachers had said they didn't love playing the lead characters. She said she loved playing the minor characters because they were the ones that had all the really actual interesting stuff. Everyone wants the big monologue and the big moments, blah, blah, blah. But the minor characters are the ones that do the way more interesting stuff. And so Demi Moore is the one who has to drag, let's be honest, this cis guy to do his actual job. And that is pretty freaking heroic. But taking out the socio-gender conversation out of it, just simply put, she's the one that doesn't stop believing in the case, ever. She's constantly pursuing it, and without her, it wouldn't work.
Without her, no one would have even suspected that there was something more going on.
And by the way, here's the interesting detail that for writers here, the very quick example people will always bring about this is Sam from Lord of the Rings, right? It's like Frodo's the main character, but Sam's the hero, because without Sam, Frodo wouldn't have succeeded, right? And everyone, I think kind of people get in their heads, oh, well, that was an epic. So that's the only where these kind of big stories can happen. But as we've illustrated, the courtroom is an epic in people's lives that's never going away. So in this sense, you can take that very big, lofty concept, you could put it right down to the human drama with her. So that would be my answer there.
That's fair. Well, you didn't.
I mean, it's weird, isn't it? I feel like Cruise is the obvious answer, but Jessup is the one that holds my interest. And as much as I love the film, I'm just waiting for him to be on screen again. And it's surprising how few scenes he has.
Right.
But he is the guy who, he sort of has the central argument of the film. He's saying, "We're here, we stand on this post, this is what we do, and how will you guys feel about it? Well, you just do your touchy-feely stuff, but we're going to stand here and guard you, you know?" And even, I think, at the end, even though he's clearly in the wrong and he's committed a crime, he just did his job. You know what I mean? Like, he just stood up for his values and he will believe in them till the day he dies. And I think what you were saying, Jared, is that even though I'm losing my train of thought. I'm getting carried away. What am I saying? Even though he might be in the wrong, he's still not completely wrong. We still need that guy.
Right.
We still need people like that, because I'm guessing the four of us are not going to be standing on a wall doing that job. There are, and this is what's so interesting about the film. And this is, you could relate this to anything in politics now. Like, wherever you stand politically, like, you have your point of view, you have your feeling of what's right and wrong. But there are certain jobs and certain people, certain roles that we need to carry out those jobs for world peace, for the security of countries and stuff. So it's, I guess I'm saying Jessup. I don't know. I love the guy. He's
None of us said Tom Cruise. Even though I had nothing personally against him, I preferred watching Tom Cruise's acting than Tom Hanks's acting.
Oh my God.
She did it again, Jared. Number one, you're wrong. And number two, Jared,
it's her last podcast episode,
Jared,
guys.
And I won't stand for it.
It's the last time we hear from Jaylon ever again. She's done it one too many times.
I have half a country away from you guys.
But
it's not far enough.
But I do agree with you guys. This part of the conversation really excites me, because this is one of the reasons why I really love antagonists who are kind of right. Because yes, they do horrific things. And in essence, yes, Santiago was killed, and that was horrible, and that was bad, and that's inexcusable. But the idea of, and maybe it's because I was watching the Law and Order thing, and there was this whole conversation about how sometimes we lose a few to save the many. And I know there are a lot of people who don't like that idea of things. Growing up, I don't know what it is, but somewhere along the line in my life when I grew up, I came to that conclusion that sometimes it's okay to sacrifice a few if greater numbers can be saved. It's not an easy decision to make. This is, again, why you need a character like Jessup, because sometimes you need a person who's willing to, while I personally believe the ideology that sacrificing a few to save many, I don't think I have the ability to do it. I don't think that if I was in a position where I had to choose between some, person who was small, feeble, and couldn't save themselves in a whole room full of people, and I had to choose which one of them would die, I don't think I'd have the ability to make the decision for it. And I think you need people who are willing to make those kinds of decisions, even if it's a little bit ugly, and even if it's something that we don't want to look at. What happened to Santiago was ultimately wrong. I will say that I think Jessup did lie to himself about the outcome when it comes to Santiago. The idea of, we had to let him die or kill him or do whatever so that the rest of the Corps could remain whole was a bit bullshit. Because at the end of the day, the better alternative is presented to him pretty much at the beginning of the film, where it's like, transfer him out, let it be, we don't have to deal with it. And in his mind, it's, well, if we take a bad apple and we put him somewhere else, he's just going to spoil everything else somewhere else, which is a little bit of a cop-out and seems like just an excuse to murder somebody. But the idea behind why he felt that way, to me, is what resonates. And so I love that. I love a story where the bad guy can be said to be right, a little bit. It happens in Black Panther as well with Killmonger. Killmonger is another great example of the bad guy is kind of right. You don't necessarily have to like him, you don't have to agree with him or his tactics, but the point is right. The other thing that I really like about Jessup, and I wonder what you guys think about this, is characters. What do you think about villains with conviction? Because there's some villains that do bad shit and they have kind of arcs in story. Sometimes they don't, most of the time they don't, but even then I feel like it's kind of flimsy. But then there are some villains where it's like, this is the thing that I believe. I'm willing to die for it. I'm willing to kill for it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to do it. I've always felt that those are more terrifying villains than anyone else. But I wonder what you guys think about that.
Absolutely. Like, there's a show on Netflix that just ended. I haven't seen the final season because I'm not ready to say goodbye. Called The Dragon Prince, and basically it's been 6 seasons each. To be fair, each season is 9 episodes long, and they're 20, 30 minutes, so it's not like the biggest thing in terms of quantity of length. But the whole show has had this mystery of what exactly is the mystery villain? So we know, but the characters have to catch up with us of who it is, but none of us know what he's doing or why he's doing what he's doing. And in the last episode of the second last season, where I left off, you find out, and I remember watching this, and I went literally aloud and said, "Oh God, we're screwed," because I understood there was no compromising to this villain. There is no debate. There's no conversation you have. This is why he's doing it, and you completely understand it, and there's nothing that can be done except try and stop him. So when you have that in the most dramatic senses, in the most cartoonish senses, it just makes it more entertaining. Like put it this way, you have Skeletor, right, in He-Man.
Mhm.
You know all he wants is to rule Eternia. That's his thing. So even it's always kind of interesting that, let's say there's like a team up episode with He-Man, right? They have to stop a greater force. You always know in the back of Skeletor's mind, can I use this as a way to get what I want? Versus the sillier villains, I mean, they can be fun, but it's not necessarily the most, if they don't have a compass, as it were, it's like kind of having a loose floorboard or something, or a warped one. It doesn't make as much interesting a foundation of a house. But yeah, conviction villains, that's the way to go.
I feel like those stories are the ones that stick in my head more, where you have to have that moral debate with yourself. If I were in this situation, if life gave me this circumstance, and I were standing in this person's shoes, what would I do? Those are stories that really do, they make you think, and not just while you're watching the movie or reading the book. They make you think about it even longer after. And so I feel like those stories are the ones that really matter, because they help us to broaden our understanding of life and not only develop sympathy for people who have been in different shoes than us and have had to make different decisions than us, but it also helps us understand ourselves more, of what's the moral code that we hold to, what are we willing to stand up against or just let happen. So I agree that I always find villains who are a little bit right to be more fascinating. And I also think that it's more realistic, because no human sets out to be the most evil human possible. I think it's just there's different versions of what's my purpose for living? What do I have to do in order to survive? So again, it's one of those things where humans aren't two-dimensional. They're not just black and white. There's always something more complex going on under those surfaces. So having a villain that is more complex is a lot more it's a lot more realistic, it's a lot closer to real life, and so therefore it is a lot more terrifying, because real life is always more terrifying than something fantastical.
Yeah. I think I've I agree with everything you guys are saying, really. I think for me that's why I've always gravitated more towards independent film, foreign films, or lower budget films, because for me there's so often, the bigger budget, the safer it needs to be. There's these very like obvious good guy, bad guy dynamics, and it's boring. Do you know what I mean? So for me, like you're saying, the more you can relate to a character, even a supposedly bad guy, the more you can see yourself in their argument, the more interesting the ride's going to be, because you're questioning yourself along the way. Like with A Few Good Men, we've kind of all pretty much said the things that Jessup's saying. I don't think any of us would sit down for a coffee with that guy and have much to say to him. We don't probably relate to him that much, but hearing his argument makes sense. It makes it interesting. Do you know what I mean? If he was just a sort of generic villain, the film would not be the classic that it is. And also, we wouldn't earn the journey he takes us on and the stuff he says at the end, that you can't handle the truth. One of us had to say it. We get to that point and we care because of his point of view, because of the complexities of it. And without that, you could have a very similar movie that's not written as well. He could be like, you can handle the truth. And we'd be like, whatever, who cares? I didn't even notice he said that. Yeah, agree with you guys overall.
Also, to that end, realism is really great in this movie, because without spoiling it for those who haven't seen it, I love what the conclusion from the jury is. And there's the bittersweet reality of it. Because I was watching this going, okay, so it's clearly going to be this. But I'm like, but what about that element? And there it is, because there's the cold reality to it. And I think the story embracing reality, rather than trying, like you said, frame it in a safe, as many people as we can get into the box office or into the theater seats, much, much more engaging.
I mean, here's my thought. I think we relate to protagonists because, and this is just my theory, we relate to protagonists because we ourselves have a lot of doubt. We have a lot of question ourselves. We flip-flop. We want to do things. We want to do all kinds of things, but we sort of do this crazy little path to get to the places we want to go, and sometimes we don't get there. I think we either admire or resent antagonists, specifically ones with conviction, because human beings by nature, we as ourselves tend to, it's very difficult to hold a belief, stand by it, and be willing to die for it. I think it's not as easy as people like make it out to be. You know, we all say, "Oh, I believe in this," or this is my values, this is what I stand for." But then, you know, something comes along that makes us sort of either the pressure is put on us and we sort of question whether or not, okay, yeah, well, I'll believe in it, next time, or I'll believe in it when I can, or this is a different case. But the idea of an individual who says, "No, this is what I believe, and I stand by this, and I'm willing to die for this. In fact, I'm not only willing to die for it, I'm willing to kill you for it," is it's intimidating, I think, to the average person. And I think that there's a level of admiration for that, which is why I think we do admire villains so much sometimes. But I think there's also a bit of resentment towards it too, because it's almost like we wish we could be that. The villain is always the person you wish you could be in a way. Even if we don't think we would do the things that they do, we do wish we had their confidence, their conviction, their belief in what they're doing. So I think that's a really an interesting dynamic of the protagonist and antagonist. At least that's how I see it. I don't know what you guys think in regards to that, but yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, because I think a lot of times villains are people who have fallen into the world is black and white, and my existence and my purpose here is black and white. And that's always an easier frame of mind to be in than someone who's trying to hold the duality of human existence not always being two-dimensional, not always being a straightforward answer of what's right and what's wrong. So I think that in that sense, yes, we all do kind of envy the villains who can be in that mindset to be able to make those decisions and stick to their guns. In some cases, a lot easier than we can, because we're trying to struggle with, well, what's the right thing to do?
Here's a question for you guys. I think it's a fun question. Who would you cast in the 3 core roles for Kathy, Joe, and Jessup, i.e. Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, and Jack Nicholson? If they were to remake it today, who would you cast?
Number 1, Tom Cruise, Chris Evans.
Okay, I could see that.
I'm done. I'll think about it, but I just had to get that off my chest.
I'm gonna pass on this because I'm even worse about knowing celebrities than I am about knowing pop culture.
That's fair.
It's such a shame that the guy who played Captain Holt in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is gone now, because he would make a fascinating Jack Nicholson character. I'm so sorry about his name. I'm screwed.
I know what you mean, though.
He would have been really interesting in that role. And I am somewhat typecasting.
You are, but it's okay.
On the spot.
It's hard for me. Like, I just start thinking of like Aaron Sorkin actors. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Start thinking of his world, and I'm not really thinking beyond that.
I mean, that's
by the way, I
too.
saw the play in London with Rob Lowe playing Tom Cruise's role, and
was that good?
It was good, because I was a big West Wing fan, so seeing like Sam Seaborn from the West Wing doing his thing, it was cool. And in a way, he kind of suited it more than Cruise, because he obviously has the looks and the charm, but I think he's even more suited to the sort of Aaron Sorkin dialogue.
Yeah, he has so much practice with it too.
Exactly. And also I feel like Cruise, and this might be that it was the 90s and it kind of has a cheesiness to it. It has a certain kind of a lightness to it, where I feel like when I saw the stage play, it was just more direct, and the funny lines weren't treated like a joke. It was treated like, this is extremely important, and that made it funny, So, yeah.
That's really interesting. I love theater. To see the different performances on theater, it's just like an endless variation of different everything with like film to theater and stuff like that. I love it.
And I was just going to look up who else was in the cast along with Rob Lowe back when I saw it, because I can't remember. But I think they were like unknowns. Anyway, sorry, carry on, guys.
I was just going to close up. Since the internet decided to hate her for no reason or whatever, screw it. Rachel Zegler. Is that her name? Yeah. There you go.
I was just about to say that. But yes, that is correct.
I can see that.
Fair. Okay. So Okay, so for me, because I have a tendency of recasting every movie with African American actors, I would say Morgan Freeman for Jessup. I would say Sterling. What's his name? Sterling K. Brown. Sorry, Sterling K. Brown, the guy from This Is Us
Yeah.
and so many other things. But him for Tom Cruise's role.
You don't think he could do a Jessup?
I think he could. I just don't want to see him do that.
I'd love to see that.
I, I love him too much. He would hurt me. But I get what you mean. I definitely believe he could do it for sure. I mean, I guess you're right though. And if we're talking today, I'm thinking, okay, let me rephrase. Because I'm thinking when this movie was made, if it was recast, what would make more sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I can see that. That would be fine. Though a little bit older, Taraji P. Henson, I would like to see as Demi Moore's character. And now I have to rethink my McAfee casting.
Can I just say, when you mention Morgan Freeman, for some reason I feel this like crossover. I can see him playing Jessup, but also a bit of Shawshank, where he's like, "There's not a day goes by I don't think of those two guys." Seeing him in Jessup with empathy, you know?
Yeah, if I had to put Morgan Freeman in the movie and I couldn't make him Jessup, I would make him the judge. There was
Oh,
just
that would be cool. And he could do that now, like
yeah.
Morgan Freeman now.
For
That would be
sure.
cool.
I would think that would be great. Who would be Kaffee? Doesn't necessarily. I'm thinking black actors now. It doesn't just have to be black actors.
Okay, well, because I'm me, I'm thinking of the cast of Hamilton.
That makes sense.
Here's a pitch for you, Jared. I don't know the actor's name. Whoever plays Louis, is it, in Interview with the Vampire?
Oh, yes. He would be good. Yeah. He would be good.
There you
Him,
go.
or if I had to get a character that wasn't black, I would say, what the fuck is his name? Hold on a second. Sorry.
Our philosophical treatise has become a casting couch.
Tom Holland. I would like to see Tom Holland play it.
He's probably the most like, he probably is a natural fit for that. I don't think it would quite work, but I can kind of see
I can see it.
I can see it.
I can see it. I think he would. I think he could do it. I think he could do it pretty well. At least I didn't say somebody like The Rock, but it's fine.
The hard thing with your question is I'm realizing that every actor I think of is way older than I think they are. Like I was thinking about Kaffee, I was like, it could be Julie Hill from The West Wing who played Charlie in The West Wing, but I'm like, no, that guy's like probably 60 now anyway. Like 50. And yeah, everyone's getting much older.
Young, yeah. It's like now that you mentioned that, it's like I'm realizing I don't know as many young actors as I thought that I did. It's like, wait a minute, like I'm becoming my mom and dad, where it's just like all the golden age, my version of the golden age Hollywood actors are like now 60, 70 years old, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought you were just in that movie before.
For me, like all the young people I know are like 40 now.
Yeah.
So like, I watched this yesterday. No,
what's weird to me is like De Niro, Pacino, they used to be 60, and all the actors we knew used to be 20, but now like De Niro's 80 and the guys we know are like 69. Like something happened.
Like, what? And then we don't feel any older, so it's like, wait a minute, I was standing still.
Like Jack Nicholson in this film, like someone refers to him as old.
Yeah.
And it's like, this was 1992 and he looked old and he's still old now. Like, it's, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I looked it up this morning. I was like, oh, he's 80 something years old. I was like, he was in his 50s when he played this role. So yeah, that's crazy. That's nuts.
We have come full circle to dad movies again.
Makes sense. It all works out. See, I had a plan. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that I guess that's how I would cast for this if I was lucky enough to direct a remake. Not that I would ever want to make a remake of this, because I would just not want that kind of pressure ever. But
you'd have to really underplay the "you can't handle the truth" line. I feel like you have to be like, listen, man, you can't understand. What's the line? You can't handle the truth. It just needs to be really like, yeah, you can't handle the truth. Anyway, yeah, I did the code red. It was me. I just had to do it. And, it happened.
Really nonchalant about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't think this movie will ever have a remake. Then again, you can never say never with Hollywood specifically.
They did 12 Angry Men again, didn't they? So anything
they did.
Happen.
That is true. Yeah, the 1997 version, which I've still not seen. However, I do know that James Gandolfini or Tony Soprano was in that one, and I've always wanted to see it because I love everything that he does. His level of range is just, or he did, rest in peace, but his range is just so Oh, so amazing. Plus,
Him,
I've seen The Sopranos like 58 billion times.
him, and George C. Scott and Edward James Olmos are in that version.
Yes, yes. I also like Edward. I like him too. I liked him
Make
in.
you better.
Have you ever seen Mayans? Probably not. Okay. Well, he's the dad in Mayans, and it's just so freaky. He's so good. I liked him in Battlestar Galactica too, but like in that one, I was just like, oh, he's still got it. He's an old man now, but he's still got it. It's another one of those guys. It's like an old guy that it's like, oh, he's. I remember when he looked. I mean, he was old in Battlestar Galactica. It felt like, but he was not that old. He wasn't like an old Jedi Knight. Like I mean, Jedi Master, like he is in Mayans. But it's fine.
To clarify, I forgot you said you had seen some of Galactica, so it's just Jaylon then.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's just her. I'm not a part of that club. It's fine. It's okay though. We still
Again, I will keep myself out.
we still love you, Jaylon. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You guys put up with me very well for how uncultured I am. It's true.
The whole purpose of this podcast, it's my secret agenda, is to kind of make sure that Jaylon watches new stuff. But how do you feel like this movie handled? This is the last question I'll ask before we do our lightning round questions and get out of here, so we don't keep Daniel here all day or night, as it might be. But how do you feel this movie handled masculinity and power, and would we write it differently now?
So I guess I'll say it because I had mentioned this before. I think it handled it really, really well because, like I said, the thing is the whole, and again, there's a lot to break down here, but just for the simplicity of it, the whole Code Red thing makes a kind of sense, right? Where you tell, like what the one Marine says, like, we're going to make you understand to not screw up for the rest of us. There is kind of a unit kind of idea about it that does make sense. The issue of it all is that that's not how it's treated, though. It's treated as nothing more than like a sorority house prank, right? Like they are barging into, like, here's the thing. You can prank someone. If they did something like this in the mess hall, right, would make total sense. Would it be great? But it would make kind of a sense. These guys were ordered to break into a guy's room and hog tie him like real bad. But they say, well, it's just a part of the core. It's just a part of the warrior code. And that's a problem. And I thought that was really interesting in the whole movie, that regarding the stuff with Jack Nicholson's character and all that stuff, yeah, it makes sense. But the problem is it has now been, maybe it comes from a good place, but it has been delivered in a bad place because of that idea of the brutality and violence of not quite might makes right, but might will find a way. Well, might can't find a way. Just as much as, to give Nicholson his credit, words will not always find a way. And I think to this end, I think if it was written today, honestly, I think it holds up in that regard. Because ultimately, it is that sense of for me, it is that sense of you can't do this. So no one is questioning, like, at least for me, it's not a question of like, do we need guys like Nicholson here? That's fine. And honestly, as long as he gets his job done and people are not like being horribly abused, he can be a dick. There we go, 3 for 3, all the way to the bank. But for me, I can't give him ever a pass because one of his men died. That is like the ultimate failure of a commander officer. And not, of course, now granted, again, these are large statements because, commanding officers have soldiers die all the time. But in terms, they're calculated into several operations, of course. But in terms of, in this context, he died on his order. And it came from an accident, sure. Well, sort of an accident, whatever. But it's the idea that the warrior code says it must be done this way. Honestly, if you wanted to be really jerky, I think we'll borrow a page from Starship Troopers. I think a good flogging might have helped, right? Which, of course, that's not true. But what I'm saying is that think of the sorority kind of prank-esque lining here is a problem versus even just the flogging, which would have had its own problems, would have been a little bit more honorable, a little bit more like an actual soldier. But I think it gets corrupted into this kind of toxic masculinity stuff. So all of this being said, again, I'm running through several different points and I don't have time to actually paint every fence post that needs painting in this moral conversation. But as a whole, I think it would have stood up today because I think it's one of those really good, Sorkin hit something on the head that's timeless then and timeless now. So I think it would still work.
An interesting perspective that I'm going to spin on it. I'm not going to just talk about masculinity because I watched it from my perspective. Obviously, like, I am not in the military, but I've seen that culture close enough. I've seen some of my own idiosyncrasies. I've seen these kind of toxic patterns where it's like there doesn't seem to be a good answer because in the end people are still getting hurt. And from my perspective, and this is just my perspective, as Charles said, this is a wide moral conversation that we don't have time to get into, nor do we have, I feel like we don't have the depth of perspective that we would need to get into this from all of history and human experience. But something that my husband and I were both noticing when we watched it is so many of these lines, so many of these things did feel like it was a commentary on the way things are today in different applications, but the same idea of military culture being, from my perspective, humans were not made for war. War is something that's very inhumane. Trying to make it something humane for someone's career during peacetime is very, very difficult. It's hard to treat someone as a human when you are preparing them to do something inhuman. So having those kinds of standards and being able to have a military force that is prepared to defend an entire nation and face death in order to see who lives longer is a very difficult thing to do. So it seems like these kinds of things shouldn't happen. It seems like there should be an easy way to say this doesn't happen, but then you have the consequence of, our preparedness, our force is weaker. And again, it comes down to like, you're trying to make something ethical and human that in essence is not ethical and human. So in that sense, I think this movie had a very good commentary on how holding those dualities is very difficult and there isn't always a right answer. Another standout moment for me that I almost forgot of was when Kathy tells the private, you can have honor without wearing a patch on your shoulder. And that's a line that really hit me because I've seen a lot of people who go into the military go into it thinking that they have to have that warrior code in order to have honor. But honor doesn't wear the same badge every single time. Honor is something that everyone has that they need to cultivate inside of them, and they're going to have different applications of what it's going to look like. So in that sense, I do see the need for again, we're going back to the conversation of like, I see the need for people like Jessup who can make those tough decisions when they need to be made. I can see the need for people like Galloway who is willing to just stand up for what is the truth and stand up for the little guy. And then I also see the need for people like these soldiers who need to be very tough and prepared. And I also see the need for, I think people like me who are more, feminine, being able to nurture the people at home and those kinds of things. So I see, as humans, we need each other. We need the range that we all are. So yeah, that's not a very nice way to wrap it all up, but those are my random thoughts on it. That's my TED Talk. I'm done.
Guess it's my turn.
It is.
Yeah.
Can you just frame the question for me again, Jared, just so
Sure.
I can answer directly? Otherwise, I'm going to respond to everyone. Yeah, give me the question again.
How does the movie handle masculinity and power, and would we write it differently?
Cool. God, I still don't have an answer. I was thinking about this the whole time. On the one hand, like, there was something that I enjoyed, something refreshing. Although we have all these history of masculine movies from a male perspective, maybe because there aren't so many films like this done in this way now, just watching it, being a guy, being a white guy, I was like, oh, I relate to this. I get this. I like this. I understand this. So there was parts of me that liked that. There was also a lot of troubling sort of dialogue by modern standards. There was, and here's a weird sort of masculinity thing. There's a moment when Tom Cruise says to Demi Moore's character, he says something about being aroused. I don't know if anyone remembers the line.
Oh yeah. Where she goes off about like all of her
her qualifications.
He's like, he says, "Wow, I'm sexually aroused," or something like that.
And here's the weird thing, and it might get to the core of why Tom Cruise bothers you, is I don't buy it when he says stuff like that. Like, it's weird that it is a very masculine movie, but like Tom Cruise, when he says that, it rubs me the wrong way. It's weird. I don't know. So obviously there's a few moments like that and Jessup as well, but if anything, this film fights against a lot of those ideas. You know what I mean? It represents, here is this, the military complex, whatever you call it. It is a sort of very old school masculine ideal, and it is Tom Cruise standing up against that is. I don't think they'd need to rewrite it. By the way, I think it works as it is. Interestingly, I think they are. It was in pre-production actually that they were going to read. Oh, this is interesting. There was a new version of this they were going to do as a live TV broadcast. Did you hear about this?
No.
Yeah, so it was on Sorkin's IMDb. I don't know if they've canned it, but I'll have a look as I'm talking. But yeah, I don't know. I have many different thoughts, but with no clarity to your question.
No, that makes sense. I agree with you guys all. I agree with all of you as far as does it need to be rewritten? I don't think it does. And I think that it did a great job in handling some of those things. I think it was kind of more of a commentary on our idea of what masculinity is and what it means to be. I think it was more of a less about power, more about honor and being of service and the military complex as a whole. I said this before, my thought process on my beef with the military, beyond just my beef with my brother abandoning me, even though he didn't, but it felt like he abandoned me to do it, was also my relationship as an African American, which is always the lens that I'm going to bring it to. My relationship with America is not great. In the present, in the past, in the distant past, it's never really been good. So the idea of signing up for and serving this country in any way, shape, or form is always, it's the same as me deciding to be a police officer. It has always felt false to my very identity. So this movie to me has always been, I never could fully relate to the idea of these people who were so, just even in real life, when I've met people that are in the military and have this the people that I've met in the military it's varied. Some of them have been very much, I'm, God and country, this is what I believe, this is what I do. And there are others that are like, I need my benefits, my paycheck, whatever, and I'm out of here. Or I want to go to school, and that's why I'm doing this. So for the ones that have had that idea of, God and country, this is what I'm about, and that's what a lot of the people in this film were. Like that, the two defendants, I forget their names at the moment, but how important, specifically the one that was, I want to say his name was Harold or Hal or whatever his name is, how committed he was to the idea of being honorable, being a Marine, their whole order of what's important to them. Oh, the whole, unit, core, God, country, was, to me, it didn't click to me. It was a weird thing, and I found that I almost had a visceral reaction to it, because I was just like, I don't understand that. I don't get why you would do that. I do understand loyalty. That's very important to me. Loyalty it's a cardinal sin to be disloyal to me, in my opinion. And I understand honor, and I understand the belief of doing what's necessary for what you believe in. I just don't get that. But I do think that showing that in this film, they did a really good job of kind of weighing that out and showing that you don't have to be, even though technically all of them really did, except for maybe Kaffee, who Kaffee had some level of respect for the order of things in the system, but he was the closest to, like, I'm not a part of this whole fraternity thing, because even Demi Moore's character still respected the Corps, not the Corps, but the Navy and all of that, and she respected all of that, and so she really understood that. So I thought it did a really good job at exploring different perspectives. I did hate that some of the words that they used. I understand for the time it was a commonplace thing, but even in that, they didn't highlight it as like a thing that you should say or a thing that's cool to do. It was more of like in fact, one of the most offensive ones, where Jack Nicholson talks about Tom Cruise in his dress whites, and he calls him the homosexual slur. It's the way that it's designed is, it's almost designed to see it as like, oh, this is the moment that, it wasn't the fact that he called him that, but it was the moment that he behaved in the way that he behaved in that moment that triggers Tom Cruise to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to kind of get in this fight some way, somehow. So even in that, I feel like from a story and structure perspective, they were still kind of saying, this shit isn't cool. You shouldn't call people that. You shouldn't do that, which we've talked about in the past about problematic people and problematic characters and the rules for that. But I think it did pretty good. I don't see it needing to be rewritten. I would say that I would like to see it in a more contemporary setting. In today's world, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it if, like, I don't know, if Aaron Sorkin wanted to do a remake and just he wanted to write it again, I would be totally cool to see what it looks like in 2025, what the military looks like now, and the kind of things that might create this kind of polarizing situations. So that would be cool. But I don't think I would necessarily personally want to rewrite it or even touch it. Again, too much pressure. I'm okay. Okay, so all that aside, lightning round. I'm going to ask some questions. Jaylon, you're automatically not included in this first question because I know the answer. Daniel, Charles, you guys may have seen these films, so this may work. But one movie has got to go. We got A Few Good Men, The Social Network, The Verdict, and 12 Angry Men.
I have no idea what The Verdict is, so I guess that one has to go.
Fair.
But I don't know. Which is horrible. I'm like killing a movie that I don't know.
It's similar for me. I'm looking up The Verdict and trying to remember it.
That's an answer all within itself.
Yeah, The Verdict can go, yeah.
I would say The Social Network. I do love The Social Network, don't get me wrong, but compared to those other three, because I do remember The Verdict, I would have to say The Social Network would have to go. Best courtroom monologue in a movie that you've ever seen.
Oh, if I remembered specifically Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, I would confidently say that answer. But
There
since
is some moments in that, like when
Yeah.
he's in a filibuster and he just won't give up
Yeah.
the floor. And
Yup, I feel like my answer will have to be that just because that's been like the longest enduring courtroom movie in my headcanon.
Okay.
I have the perfect answer for me. So, my favorite, at least, is the ending of season 3 of Battlestar Galactica, where one of the characters, Adama, he has this monologue, and I sent this to you actually, Jared. So you may remember this. This was a while back, but I did send to you. It is so well done. It's so well spoken. It advances so many ideas that have been happening in the show up to that point. But the thing is, and I've never really shared this in public before, so this is important here. I'll never forget that I was watching this with my dad, and I was totally against the defendant. And the character I'm talking about is a lawyer, not a prosecutor. And my dad said before the episode aired, he said, here's what's going to happen. They are going to make the defense about the situation being gray and not black and white. And I was like, what does that mean? Gray? What are you talking about? And he explained to me how the world can be gray. Sometimes that's not just good guys and bad guys and good and evil, that there is this mixture and stuff. Things are complicated. And I saw that episode and I heard what this character was saying. And I was like, that's literally what was predicted. But it was the first time I ever truly understood that concept because of the scene, because of my dad. So that kind of ties everything with your dad question before. So sorry, that was a little heavy there for me, but that's my favorite.
I'm struggling to remember any films ever in a courtroom, even though they're my favorite type of film. I'm like, I've got no idea. I was picturing, like, does he have a monologue in Liar Liar? What does Jim Carrey do?
He does, in fact, have one.
Yeah,
I love that one. And I'm not a huge Jim Carrey fan, but I do love that one.
You can invite me back for that film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, my brain's gone.
Totally fine. I will have to say, and I had to look it up because I had to make sure that I had the right movie. But it's more because it's less of a monologue, but it's just a line that has stuck with me for life and will always stay there. And it's Samuel L. Jackson's line in A Time to Kill, where he says, "Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell." It is the best line ever, and it was so raw and so honest, because if you watch the movie and you know it's about him being on trial for a crime he didn't commit, and he's and all this other stuff, but it's just so good. But that line and the delivery, Samuel Jackson, of course, is a treasure. So it is always awesome. But that's like my favorite courtroom line ever. Okay, last question: most underrated legal drama, in your opinion?
Have you guys seen a film called Anatomy of a Murder?
Heard of it.
Yeah, also Jimmy Stewart from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. A really good film. Yeah. And it's what's great about it is you come into the film not knowing if the defendant's guilty or not guilty, and it's just, from what I remember, it's just a pure courtroom drama for like 3 hours with very little happening outside the courtroom. And I remember going to a screening. I took my brother to see it, and he's not always one to watch sort of black and white movies and stuff, but and it's like 3 hours long, and it's epic. It's a really good. I'd definitely seek it out if you're into the courtroom thing. So yeah.
Can I say again, I'm not in touch with current pop culture approved things, but I want to say Miracle on 34th Street, but I don't know if that's underrated or not as far as like people don't appreciate it. I don't know if people appreciate it or not, but I feel like it's a very silly premise, but it was a very interesting courtroom drama. And I don't know, I rewatched it recently and thought it was just as good, if not better, than when I would watch it at Christmas time when I was really little.
I want to answer your question. First of all, I believe Miracle on 34th Street is appreciated as a Christmas movie and not necessarily much more. Two, Jaylon, you will define what is pop culture relevant. Do not let anyone on the internet or in the world tell you what is and isn't pop culturally relevant.
I appreciate you've said this after you guys have kicked me out of this podcast.
That's true. It's true. Well, you can come back now. You're welcome. Welcome back.
Like, never.
Forgive
never
us.
let anyone do that.
I mean, you did talk trash about Tom Hanks, so I mean, I don't know. It'll be decided in a courtroom eventually.
I really can't really think of anything that in terms of underrated in that sense, other than most people don't know that Battlestar Galactica arc, and it's even in the fandom, I think it's kind of like appreciated and not like one of the moments of the show, at least in my experience. So I'm honestly not exactly sure, but I will say there are some Daredevil stories that are very lawyer-centric that I always really appreciated. Just to see, again, like that human drama, that sense of it's not like who did it. So, for example, one that Ed Brubaker wrote, I cannot remember what the storyline is called. I think it's called Crime and Punishment with a volume, at least the story arc. But I can't remember the exact specifics. And of course, Matt Murdock has to do his Daredevil stuff and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is boiling down to two things. I mean, thing number one, why is this guy choosing to be guilty? What pushes a person to do that in terms of the mystery? But also at the time, Matt is suffering from serious grief and depression and trying to just push through his life, and how this kind of doing this case that he doesn't want to do helps pull him out of that for a time. So I guess the Daredevil stories, because I think most people think of Daredevil as just like, bargain basement ninja who fights the Kingpin. That's pretty much it. But the lawyer stuff I've always really, really liked of Daredevil. So I guess that's my cop-out answer.
I think The Hurricane with Denzel Washington is incredibly underrated, and it's a fantastic courtroom film. So we'll have to watch that eventually.
Can we get Denzel into the remake, by the way? I'd pay
Yeah.
to watch.
I didn't even think of that. Now you've
We
opened a
can
whole
play-
new possibility.
We can play all the roles. I don't care.
As long as he's there, he can play it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And then Kevin Bacon will be Michael B. Jordan.
yeah.
There you go.
I'm loving this. We're gonna have to do it now. There's got to be an all black cast for the new A Few Good Men, and it'll be awesome. And it's got to be directed by Spike Lee or Ryan Coogler. One of those two have to do it. But yeah,
Now I really want to see the Spike Lee version shot in his style.
yes,
That would be interesting.
I would love to see that. I love Spike Lee. But yeah. So guys, that is the episode. First of all, we want to thank Daniel for putting up with us for the 2 hours that he sat with us, and
I appreciate it.
we really had fun having you on. We would love to have you back. We will have to have a Liar Liar episode so you can come back and talk to us about
I'm
that.
there.
Question: whose idea was this for this film?
This was Daniel's.
Yeah, I
So-
was given the list, and I saw a Sorkin film, and I thought, that one I can do on no sleep. It'll be fine. So
Well, I wanted to say thank you because I never, maybe not never, but it would have taken me a long time to get around to this. So thank you for showing this because I really
Nice.
enjoyed it.
Awesome.
nice. I get it. Cool.
Do you want to tell our audience where they can find you? Plug all your stuff. Share the projects you're working on.
Sure. Where you can find me, I have a website, danieljohnsonfilms.co.uk. I have the Substack that you guys found me on. You've got media. My Instagram is Daniel Johnson Films. TikTok's Daniel Johnson Films. That's where you find me. As for what I'm working on, right now I'm about to have a few weeks off of doing anything. I'm actually traveling to America. My wife's American. So we're taking the baby over to America to do the family tour of all of her family over there. So we'll be traveling around. So I'm kind of going to shut off a bit from anything too creative. Outside of that, recently I've been a big thing I've been doing is, it's very niche, won't suit you Americans, but I don't think. But I do these comedy sketches on Instagram and TikTok around what we call football, you call soccer. Turns out that there is such a sort of diehard audience that will give you millions of views when you say bad things about their team. So these sketches have been going viral, and I'm working with a lot of actor friends, and I write and direct those. So that's been the fun thing that I've been doing, not for money, not for anything other than just the fun of doing it, you know. So that's been my thing. I'll have to do a courtroom one next. But,
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, what's your English Premier League team?
say that again.
What's your English Premier League team?
My team is Tottenham Hotspur, Spurs. They suck pretty much.
I saw.
But I'm a season ticket holder. Well, we are in a European semi-final, so there could be some success, but it's been a fair few years. So who's your team?
Well, it's because of my sister. It's Everton, whose tagline
Everton.
is "Hooray, we're adequate."
Yeah, they're just about adequate. I like Everton. That's a good shout. That's cool.
We should have started the show with this. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Well, thank you, Daniel, once again for being here. Thanks, guys, for listening. We will talk to you guys next week. See you later.
Thanks, guys.